Ken mentioned this is Laetare Sunday, the fourth week, the halfway point here in the season of Lent. Sometimes you want to go, yoo-hoo, depending on how well your Lent's been going. Maybe that's time for a little checkup right now. We'll do a little aerobic exercise too. So as you think back on your season of Lent, how many of you would give a thumbs up? Okay. How many give it a thumbs down so far? And the rest of you are going to be like this, maybe? Okay. Whatever your experience has been so far, this weekend, once again, you have an opportunity to ask for the graces you need, our parish needs, I need, that we may continue to listen to and respond to the voice of God who leads us in the desert known as Lent. Or, if it's been one of those thumb down or shaky kind of Lents, then here's the weekend to start. You have a chance to begin anew. Interesting enough, little trivia, in the early church, Lent was only 2 days old in the very beginning. It was 2 days of fasting before the Sacred Triduum. Don't we like the old days sometimes better? By the 3rd century, it was only 2 weeks. And guess what? There's 2 weeks beginning today. So you could begin this as your new Lenten period today if it's not been going as well as you like. If any of you had an opportunity to attend an Ash Wednesday liturgy wherever, the readings for that day provide a template for our Lenten activities. Joel says in the first reading, call an assembly, proclaim a fast. May it not be business as usual. In the Gospel, Jesus offers reflections on what we just call those 3 stalwarts of Lent: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And then squeezed in between there was Paul's letter to the Corinthians, which invited us to become ambassadors of Christ, ambassadors of reconciliation. Notice the very reading that Gwen just proclaimed a few minutes ago. It comes like with a reprisal today, so that's where my focus is for the homily today. Some of the fruits of the original blessing of Adam and Eve being in the garden, animated by God, being stewards of all of creation, were harmony, unity, and wholeness. Some of the effects of original sin were division, separation, discord, and estrangement. And those things occurred not only between God and humanity, but also within humanity itself. And the only thing that could restore that original blessing ended up being Jesus' passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus, the Son of God, and our Redeemer. One of the prefaces for a prayer for reconciliation, it is said wonderfully, poetically, and powerfully, that same idea. Please listen. It's addressed to God. Never did you turn away from us, and though time and again we have broken your covenant, you have bound yourself to the human family through Jesus, your Son, our Redeemer, with a new bond of love so tight that it can never be undone. That's an amazing image, to be bound to God so tightly with bands that cannot be unbound. Have you ever been hugged like that before? That's the image of God hugging all of us and all of creation in Jesus' surrender on the cross. There are 3 components to this ministry of reconciliation. There is contrition, there is forgiveness, and there is reconciliation. But before we say yes to Paul's invitation to be an ambassador of reconciliation, I think it's one of those things that you and I must experience, both as a recipient and as an initiator. It goes back to the words of my philosophy professor from New Orleans. He would say, Nemo dat non quod habet. And his New Orleans drawl, he said, no one can give what they ain't got. And if we are invited to be ambassadors of reconciliation, we must experience it. Contrition. For me, it is this ability to humbly come before God or someone else and to say, I have done something that has hurt you, and I am sorry, and I want to change. And the key part is, I want to change. I think we are really prone to say, I'm sorry. Contrition is, I'm sorry, and I'm going to do my best to change. I'm sorry that I crossed the line. I'm sorry that I did something unloving, and I really want to change. That's what the nature of contrition is. Forgiveness. The root of the word forgiveness is to give without reserve, to give completely. And what are we giving when we forgive someone or ask for forgiveness? It sounds like crude language, but we are giving them to say, you are no longer in my debt. You don't owe me. Because in a way, the imagery about when I offend you, I owe you something. You know, the language of your moms where you owe them an apology. But I also owe them more, and the forgiveness says, you are not in my debt any longer. It's interesting, I read in the booklet today, the black books, Jesus uses the word forgiveness and forgiven, forgive, like 47 times in the Gospels. Key part of his ministry. He himself uses his words at the very end on the cross. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Reconciliation, I believe, is this, again, root word, to bring together again. You know, when I said about divided or estranged, reconciliation does that. Interesting relationship. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. But you need forgiveness for reconciliation to occur. You can forgive someone, but it isn't about having a relationship with them perhaps anymore. It just doesn't work. Or they have hurt me so bad that I forgive them, but I don't know if I can be reconciled. Again, Jesus' own words. He says, I forgive them. Forgive them, Father. I didn't know if he wanted to be reconciled with them, but that's a different issue. But forgive them. And so for us to be people, ministers of reconciliation, I think that forgiveness is a part of it. Take those three things and apply it to the story we know so familiar, the prodigal son. The son seeks out his father to ask for his forgiveness, and he comes to him with a contrite heart. I am sorry for what I have done. I'm also sorry for what I failed to do. I ask for your forgiveness. The father offers to him the gift of reconciliation. He restores to him his sonship, his original blessing. Put on a ring, put on the clothes, put on the sandals. Let's have a feast. Let's go back to the way things were in the beginning. But it's really interesting what's happening by restoring that. Remember when the son said, give me the inheritance? The only way you get the inheritance is, Dad, if you're dead. That's pretty blunt, don't you think? A lot going on there to say, I want to restore you to life, my son. And then we got the older son. He's got a lot of issues, I think. So it's not as easy for him. He is angry, he's resentful, a little self-righteous, wants to be affirmed, wants to be recognized. And he's estranged from his brother and his father. What he needs to do is he has to deal with some of those issues, I think, before he can forgive much less be reconciled with his brother and his dad. Again, Paul invites us to participate in this ministry of reconciliation, to be ambassadors of reconciliation. So the question to ask is, am I ready, am I willing to heal the wounds of sin and division, to tear down walls that separate us? Am I willing to listen and dialogue? Am I willing to bring people together? Am I willing to forgive and to ask to be forgiven and to do it extravagantly? If I am, then maybe this invitation is for me. Maybe if you want to take your game up a little level during Lent, to work on this the last 2 weeks. Or if you got to get started, maybe this is where to start. And to be an ambassador of reconciliation at home, within your family, or at work, or in the classroom, or maybe with a friend. You get the idea. There's a lot of places you can be an ambassador. The invitation, if this is where God may be calling you, then to accept that invitation.